everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and I wanted to show you what's on my desk today. I joined a group swap thing. It's over at the StencilGirl Stencil Club Facebook group, which is something you can join if you're in the Stencil Club, which is where you get the exclusive stencils each month. They have videos, they have all kinds of stuff, and one thing they have is this party call swap every month. You guys might remember that I did some wide washi tape a couple months ago. That was for party call. You're just assign some people in the group to swap with. This time I decided to join again, and I got 3 partners, and there are 3 prompts, one for each thing that I'm swapping. So I needed to make a total of 9. So what these are is artist trading card coins. This was a fad that somebody came up with this idea of making 2.5-inch circles instead of making the usual 2.5 by 3.5-inch card. So it has to be 2.5 because it can't be larger than an ATC, right? It still needs to be able to fit in a sleeve or whatever. So I got out some cardboard, which happens to be the StencilGirl cardboard envelope that they mail the club stencils in. And I first cut these circles. They are just 1/8 an inch shy of 2.5 inches. I didn't have exactly the right size die. I didn't want to cut them by hand because I thought they would look sloppy if I cut them by hand, and I didn't have a punch large enough. I didn't have a 2.5 inch punch. So these are very close to 2.5 inches, but they are just a teeny tiny bit shy of that. But I don't think it's really going to matter. They'll still fit in an ATC sleeve. So I made 3 of them, and then I put some dictionary paper. I think it's dictionary paper. I'm pretty sure it is. On them by using some what's that stuff called? Yoo-hoo glue stick, and gluing it down and trimming it out. And then the last thing I did to make sure that the edges were perfectly smooth was I used a sanding block that you use for your nails, that kind if you get acrylic nails or whatever. And I sanded off the edges. Then it was time to start adding color, and I thought this first one I would do watercolor. And of course, since it's StencilGirl Stencil Club, I'm going to use StencilGirl stencils in some of the process. I guess I don't have to. That's probably not a requirement 100%, but I mean, if I have the stencils and it's something to do with StencilGirl, I probably should use them. So I decided to start out with watercolor, like I said. And this is my jumble of watercolor pans that are from tubes. And I used something called pixie spray. And the pixie spray is a temporary adhesive. And I sprayed the back of the stencil with it, and then I waved it in the air for a minute and stuck it down. And you saw on that first one it worked really well. The watercolor didn't really go underneath the stencil. It's not a perfect stencil, but it's really nice, and you can mix a lot of different colors in there. So I was happy with the first one. I pulled the stencil off and stuck it down to the next one. And after doing that one, I realized that for the pixie spray temporary adhesive, you need to put it on every time. It's not super sticky, you know. I've never really wanted to use stencil adhesive because then you got this sticky mess on your stencil, and then when you try to put away, it's all sticky and nasty, and you have to try to wash it off, and that just doesn't seem appealing. But with this one brand, this pixie spray from iCraft, which I think is a ThermoWeb company, it really works because it's not super sticky, and you only can use it once, and then when you put your stencil away, it doesn't matter, it doesn't stick to anything else because it's done being sticky already. So then my second one, and the video is getting way ahead of my talking. The second one, I figured out that you could only use it once, because when I put the second one down, then the watercolor went all under the stencil. So then I had to use some acrylic paint in order to fix that problem. So I used the same stencil with some buff titanium acrylic paint, and I put the dots back on. So I've still got the same colors, but it's a little bit different pattern. Then I used a second stencil, and I added some quinacridone gold acrylic paint, and I put a little bit of that on the other one too. And then the last thing I did was I made a bottom. These are round, right? So they don't have a top and bottom. So I needed a bottom. So I added some indigo watercolor through a third stencil and put it down at the bottom. And then I flecked a little bit of that. So now I've got some green gold, some quinacridone gold, some indigo. Those are type of colors that I have here. And I found a photograph on unsplash.com, which is a place that you can get photographs to use in your art without any royalties or any fear of being sued for using someone else's thing off the internet. And the theme of this one, remember I told you there was prompts, 3 prompts. The prompt for this one is angst. And so this girl looks like she's just had enough, and she's just curled up in a ball with her hands over her face, and I thought that really looked like angst. Oh, another step that I did before I forget is I went over with my brayer over the top of these backgrounds with some matte medium in a fluid form to seal everything up, because you know watercolor can be affected and continue to move on a surface after you have put it on there. So you can see I'm doing that again. That's using a 2-inch brayer to put some matte medium over and drying them up so that they're all nice and sealed. Everything's sealed. These pictures were printed on an inkjet printer, and that's also something that can run and smear with water or other media. So that's why I sealed it up again after I put the girls on. Then my last thing to do is to add some shadows and highlights and different stuff to make the girl stand out a little bit more. I'm using a taupe colored Faber-Castell pen. This is India ink, and going around the edges and smearing it with my finger out a little bit to, make it so that it's not, the lines are not so solid. And the reason that I can do that is because it's all sealed up with the medium, right? I've put that medium over twice, and now it's a surface that I can have a few seconds to blend my shadows with my finger. Some white splatters with a white Posca pen, and wiping those off the girls a little bit. I didn't want them to be particularly splattered. And then I decided that they needed some color too, so I'm using some of these Faber-Castell pens. This one is a Caucasian flesh color to just kind of add some color and some shadow. I used a dark brown in the hairs, and I think I used a sienna color on the dress to deepen the shadows a little bit, just to make those pictures stand out more from the background. Give them a little bit more drama. When I'm printing with an inkjet printer, it's not the best quality of photograph. It's pretty, I don't know, meh. So it's good to have a little bit of color over the top. My last thing to do was to make some words, and my words say, "Go away, world." It's exactly how I feel right now. Just freaking go away, world. I don't want to hear about one more thing. I just don't. It just keeps coming, and I don't want to hear about it. So that was my angst card. I also sponged around the edges with some darker color to kind of frame in the ATC coin. And I put on the words and put a little bit of shadow around them and over them because they were pretty white. And there you have it. That's my first ATC coin ever in my life. I don't follow fads, people. I don't do what other people are doing most of the time unless it interests me. And round ATCs didn't interest me, so I never did it. So this second one, I cut out 3 more ATC coins, and this time they are 2.5 inches wide, but they are scalloped on the edge, which I thought was pretty cool. That's another die that I have in my, pile of little thin dies. Again, they're cut out from the cardboard that the StencilGirl stencils come in, the envelopes. They're stiff cardboard in order to keep, so that the stencils, when they're mailing them in the mail, don't get bent. So that makes a good base for these, I think. This time I took a piece of deli paper that already had a little bit of paint on it from some gel printing session probably, and I decided to make some stenciled paper for my background. I started with lavender, light blue, light pink, and white, and this spoked wheel collage, I think it's called, stencil, which is one of my favorites. It's a 6x6. And then I'm using the light pink with a different stencil. This is one of the club set stencils, and I'll put a link to the stencils and things that I used below so that you can find them. But I know this one is from the club, and I cut it apart. Like the 9x12 came with a lot of different designs, these strips of designs on that, and I wanted them to be individuals, so I cut the stencil up. And then I put all the parts of the stencil on a wire key ring. I put a little tab on there to tell me which set it was. And then there you have it. I have lots of little stencils instead of one big stencil. Now this one is a mask. It was, I believe, designed by Tracy Bautista. And she's making the most beautiful handmade watercolors now. They look like geodes and gems and things. They're just really super cool. But this is one of her stencils, and I decided I wanted to use this kind of flower effect because the coin that I cut out has scallops around it. It kind of makes it look like a flower. It's a circle with little bumps on the edge, so those kind of look like petals. So then I used the actual die. I knew there was no way that I could possibly put this background on the coin and then still have it fit around all those little bumps around the edge in any reasonable way. So I used the die again and cut out my painted paper into the shape of the die. And then I just put those on, and now of course they fit perfectly and they make the background of my ATC coin really easily. Making sure that they line up. I'm using the Yoo-Hoo glue stick again, and I have just a little bit of time to be able to kind of scooch those and move them with my thumbs to make sure that they're all lined up. I also made some backs that have my name and my YouTube, my Facebook, my Instagram, all my links to glue on the back. I made those on the computer. So then I decided to just go all doodly with these and use some Posca pins to, make some marks on here. Draw around the center, draw around the petals, make some circles in the middle for, this is kind of like maybe a sunflower or something because it has a large middle and a small amount of petals because of the size of the stencil versus the size of the die. So these are light color pastel Posca pins that come in a set, and I'll link those below as well. I think they're called naturals. I think they should be called pastels, and I think they're called naturals. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that, and I'll be able to find them on Amazon and link them for you. I know that's where I got them, is Amazon. So, yeah. The Posca Pin Company is Uni, U-N-I, and they're not in the United States. It's a pin from another country. I'm not sure if it's Japan or China or something, but if they have the kind of writing that I can't read. So I just keep messing around. I also have this set of Posca pins that are called glitter pins, and they have the mica in the acrylic. And I'm going to use those as well because they coordinate with the colors of this natural set. They're lighter. Most of them in it are lighter colors. And I think Peg bought those for me. Nice of her. They're glittery Posca pins. Posca pins are acrylic. If you guys didn't know that, they're acrylic inside. So I decided to make a vine down the side to continue with this kind of floral theme. And the prompt for this one is serenity. And that's the reason that I picked the light colors, because I think serene environments, calming environments have light pastel nature colors. That's what feels serene to me. A garden, walking through a garden, walking through a field of flowers seems like something that is serene, and that's the reason that I picked what I picked. Also, the shape of the coin as well kind of drove that idea of a flower garden. I'm using a fine tip Posca to go around the edges of the the vine to make it stand out from the background a little bit more, because everything was just kind of blending together with those light colors. Needed something to stand out from the background. And then I used one of the glitter pins, the green glitter pin, and added a second color onto the vine leaves so that, you could see a little bit of sparkle on there. I also used the kind of coral color or orange color sparkly pin on the dots in the center of the flowers. And that just adds some extra interest to these. And I could have left them. I could have just probably left them like this, but I decided I wanted to put the word serenity on there. I thought maybe you wouldn't get it otherwise. So the first thing I did was sponge the edges a little bit with some gray archival ink. And then I decided that I should stamp the word serenity on there. So I got these stamps out. These are really ancient Stampin' Up! Stamp set that has the upper and the lower case. The lower case is mounted on the side of the block, and then the upper case is mounted on the top of the block. But they're small enough that I can fit the entire word serenity across the card. So then I ended up giving a little bit of the black sponge around the edges as well, because I didn't think the gray was quite dark enough. I'm using black archival ink. This is the large size pad from Ranger. I also have my little round things glued on the back that say my name and all my social media. Once I had that on there, it was just a little bit too dark. So I just took a baby wipe and I just kind of scratched it back a little bit and made it look weathered, I guess is what you'd call it. And then to finish these off, I put a little flower spongy, I think it's made out of fun foam, spongy stickers in flower shapes with a little center on them in lavender that's a stick-on gem. So I hope you've enjoyed this video of me making my ATC coin swaps. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe, turn on your notification bells, pin this on Pinterest, share it with your friends. All those things help my channel grow by helping other people out in the YouTube universe find me, because it's very tricky these days to find what you want on YouTube. So that's it for me for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.